Hey everybody, it's Alex from Heavy New York. We are back at the beautiful St. Vitus basement. I absolutely miss this place. And we got an awesome guest. We are here with Ken of Abigail Williams. Thank you for your time, man.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's awesome to have you here. The Accuser's now been out for about over a year. How was the record cycle and everything been so far?
It's been out for a long time, sort of. It just might have seemed like it came out recently because when it came out, our label didn't do anything, and it wasn't even in stores on time for the release date, and it's a long story. But yeah, it's been a long, it's like been a 2.5 year or so cycle. So we have a new record just about done.
Awesome.
So, and we're gonna put that out in like March next year.
Sweet.
So yeah.
Is this kind of like intended to be a direct follow-up to The Accuser, or is this record going to kind of stand out in its own entity?
Pretty much every Abigail Williams record stands out on its own. It's definitely going to have a sound that people are going to complain about all over again, probably. So, yeah, I mean, there's elements from all of our albums on this new one, but it's still pretty different sounding from the last one.
Yeah. Well, I feel like Abigail Williams' sound has definitely evolved from all the records. Like, do you, like, go into each record with, like, an idea in mind and saying, let's bring in this element, or do things kind of happen organically?
It happens organically, but at the same time, I pretty much won't even put the record out unless it sounds different than the last one.
Really?
Yeah, like, so for The Accuser, the last album, there was pretty much an album written, ready to go, and it sounded too similar to Becoming to me, and then we didn't use it, and then it ended up, The Accuser ended up happening, and then I was like, okay, this sounds fresh, so we did that. And then for the same thing for this album, the stuff I had was like too similar probably to like Becoming and The Accuser, so pretty much just worked on music until came up with something that I thought was different enough to piss our fans off. I don't know.
Well, that's actually awesome because, like some bands, they kind of like to keep the same formula going, but you guys are clearly never afraid to just completely think outside the box, right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong with doing the same thing. It's just not been the approach for this band, so it'd be weird to start now,
Yeah.
I mean, it would have been easy after our first album, which sold a good amount of copies, and if we just kept doing that, I'd probably have more money in my bank account right now. I'd probably have money in my bank account instead of being negative. But
That's not metal, though.
Yeah. But I don't know. I just felt like it should be a project where I just do whatever I want and not have to care about meeting people's expectations, know? So
yeah. Well, it's funny because I feel like that just in your tour packaging alone, because, you've toured with a lot of other black metal bands like Belphegor, but then you've toured with, like, symphonic bands like Flesh God Apocalypse, and then more doom-oriented bands like Today Is the Day. I'd imagine by making each record sort of stand out, it allows you to have a broader audience, right?
I wish we had a broader audience. No. I mean, maybe. I think it's the sort of thing where, I think we can play with a lot of different types of bands. We don't try to, like, pigeonhole into, like, one crowd. I don't even think we belong. I don't think we fit in any particular scene even, you know what I mean? I definitely never felt like we were part of any clique of bands, or
none of those 2,700 different subgenres.
I just never felt like we were in any of that, So, but yeah, I mean, we'll tour with all sorts of different types of bands.
Yeah, definitely. You tour with Hoobastank, maybe.
Well, sure. If I was getting paid, I probably would.
Now, I didn't want to touch too much on this, but as a lot of people know, you were featured on the latest Faceless record, and I was just curious to maybe working with, because I always thought that Abigail Williams was a little more atmospheric and the Faceless was a little more technical. Did maybe working and experimenting with that particular record maybe could help you bring in some newer elements with Abigail Williams?
Um, I definitely don't want to bring any Faceless elements into Abigail Williams. If anything, I would say that album had elements of Abigail Williams, the Faceless album. I mean, there was orchestral bits, and we already did that like on a couple albums. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then of course, then my vocals. So if anything, the Faceless got that influence on that album, but I definitely don't plan on taking any Faceless influence for anything in the foreseeable future.
Okay. Was it a completely different mind frame, like working with a different project outside of Abigail Williams, or do you kind of have like a style that you always stick with?
Oh yeah, it was completely different because when I do vocals for Abigail Williams, I leave them pretty raw and in the moment, and I like to just record, let it play through the whole song, and just get a raw take. And even if it's not perfect, I'd rather have something that captures a moment. Whereas the Faceless record was recorded over a long span of time, and I'm talking like the way Michael was recording. Sometimes I'd do like one line and I'd have to wait like 2 hours to do another one or something because he works at a much slower pace.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, everybody's different. And now, one thing I was curious about with Abigail Williams is that, just by looking at your titles, I mean, as a huge fan of The Crucible, that's my favorite play of all time. Like, I could tell that Abigail Williams may have I feel like your songs can tell stories. Do you, like, sometimes think of a concept or lyrics and write music according to that? Or do you, like, need to hear music to come up with a concept?
Yeah. Generally, I come up with the music first. Almost always. I think maybe in the early days there was times when I had some lyrics, and then I never come up with a lyrical concept first because I'm not super good with words necessarily, so I'm better at expressing through music. So I'll have a feeling that I want to convey and I'll write the music. I'll let that do that talking, and then I have to figure out what to say with it. You know what I mean? So
Okay.
that's the way I do it.
Okay, and I'd imagine that I always thought that your music is also open to interpretation.
Oh, yeah. I think so.
Yeah.
Especially, that's one of the reasons for the last album I left the lyrics unpublished, because I just felt like it might be better if people interpret it the way they want. You know what I mean? Because for me, it was also a more personal album, and it might a song that could be like inspiring and positive for one person. Well, if they read my lyrics, they might not think so anymore. You know what I mean?
Your like perspective on a song completely. And I've talked to vocalists before, and they've said like, oh, when a fan comes up and tells me the meaning of my song to them, and it's nothing like what I wrote, it opens up a completely different perspective.
That happens all the time. Yeah. I mean, it's interesting to see the way people think, and then sometimes what they come up with is more thought out than anything. I was just like, well, no, I didn't think that deeply on that song. You know what I mean?
Oh my
God.
God.
That's cool,
I've heard people analyze song lyrics before time, and I could just smell the smoke coming out of their ears just of how hard they're thinking about it. Now, one final question I'd like to ask you is, because I'm a huge when I was watching you guys the last time you came to St. Vitus, I was interested in what kind of gear you were using. So if you want to do a little gear rundown.
Yeah, sure. We use different gear all the time.
Really?
So I can't remember the last time we had the same gear on a tour to the next. But on this tour, it's a pretty simple setup. And by saying it's simple, it's pretty complicated at the same time. Basically, I have a computer, and we're running a DAW, and I have all the guitars from amp simulators on the computer going to front of house, and then also to cabinets on the stage. So one output will be without cabinet emulation. That'll go just for our stage monitoring through an actual guitar cab. And then the other one will go front of house with guitar cab emulation. And then, so all of our effects and patch changes are automated, so we don't have to step on pedals.
Oh, wow, that's great. I've seen some bands have more pedals than Tom Morello would.
It's cool because we used to be one of those bands that would have lots of pedals, and I'm not a good tap dancer, and it got to a point where I was just so lazy. I had all these pedals and I didn't use them. I just left delay or reverb on and was whatever, because I didn't want to constantly be changing things. Now it's I can have a chorus on just this part, flanger here, bigger delay here, phaser here, and not think about it. We just have to play guitar. Oh, clean channel comes in, don't have to think about it. You know what I mean?
That's got to be so.
I don't know. I like it, and it sounds really good actually as well. I mean, this is something I would think was really lame in the past.
Yeah.
But
Why?
we tried it, and it sounds pretty good.
Yeah, I also noticed your load-in and sound check was just super quick while I was waiting for you guys. So I was just wow, they got it down to a T. But now it kind of makes sense from what you're explaining to me.
Yeah, that's the other thing. Yeah, so even my vocals have automated effects, which is just pretty much reverb that comes in when the song starts and turns off in between, and then I even have my own preamp in the rack. We have an SSL channel strip going into a old DBX 160 compressor for the vocal. So what the sound man gets is pretty much just ready to go.
You can't imagine how many sound men love you right now.
Oh, we've had guys on this tour say it was the quickest sound check they've ever done.
Yeah, and because you're a vocalist and a guitarist, do you kind of have a guitar adjusted to that, or is it just the guitar you've always used and that's what you're comfortable with?
You mean my actual guitar?
Yeah.
I like to play different guitars all the time.
Yeah.
But I play comparison guitars, but yeah, I like to play a different one on every tour if I can.
That's the first. I can't imagine. That's something to look forward to every time you come around.
I like to see different pictures with different guitars.
Yeah, you should be a guitar model. That should be but Ken, I want to thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Just you said the new Abigail Williams record's expected to come out this March, or
yeah,
and,
March-ish.
Yep. And what else can we be expecting from Abigail Williams if you're allowed to talk about it?
More tours next year.
Yep.
We're going to Japan in November, and then Europe. And then that's the rest of our touring for this year. And then next year, when our album comes out, we have tours planned out already that we can't talk about.
Yeah.
And, yeah.
You'll tell me when I turn the camera off.
Sure.
Yeah. But thanks so much, Ken. Everybody, we are here with Ken of Abigail Williams. Pick up Accuser if you haven't already, and be on the lookout for their new record coming soon. This is Alex from Heavy New York. We'll see you next time.